It took me 2 playthroughs and 2 scripts for me to successfully portray my thoughts on Redline. To me, Redline is not a bad game. It's not a good game either. Instead, it's more of a guilty pleasure than anything else, and it remains as one of the more curious and unique games I've played to completion. The main gist of the game is to imagine your typical FPS set in a Mad Max dystopia with Hot Wheel cars you can drive and fight in a very twisted metal kind of way. Got that? Me neither. That may seem like an exaggeration, but this game is pretty friggin' insane. You play as a voiceless gun for hire that's picked up early on by a PMC called The Company. Yeah, I know. Anyway, you're tasked to carry out some insane, dangerous, and dirty and pretty wacky missions in the barren wastes known as the Outside. The actual briefings before each mission are given by your ever-so-charming commander.
He assumed we didn't know the go code for his Redline collar. Once we got a fix on his position, we taught him a little object lesson in company politics. Once you're in for life.
Now these missions themselves mostly revolve around blowing something up or someone up, or driving to a destination of some sort. It's pretty straightforward stuff, but it's the gameplay that makes Redline stick out. In most missions, you can jump in and out of your car, seamlessly switching from driving around and smashing into people to running around and gunning down people. The on-foot shooting isn't so much bad, but a bit generic and sort of boring if it wasn't for the amount of gore that would smear the ground. Thankfully, your weapons help make that really easy. You move wicked fast, which is good since you're going to need to dodge a whole heap of projectiles coming from the dozens of other NPCs on screen. You get an impressive variety of different gangs and ghouls to fight through, though they all feel a bit uninvolved, with the lack of frames of animation and actual intelligence. They shoot and die. That's it. The biggest annoyance I had while playing in this traditional mode was when you're dealing with other vehicles, because they could instantly kill you across the map, and you have very little ways to defend yourself. If parts like this happen, you're better off reloading a save or relying on good old luck to save you. In a bittersweet touch, your ever-so-lovely commander will make a remark on your death.
Sergeant like that guy, in a distant, hands-off sort of way.
Thanks. Speaking of vehicles, and awkward segues, the actual cars, or rigs as they're called, are a very different story. If you're expecting something realistic in terms of handling, then this really isn't the game for you. Though it may look serious and dark, it's more goofy and fun than anything else. You do perfect swerves and slides around corners, even in the air, and if you smash head-on into a wall, then you slightly bounce back. I do recommend playing the game occasionally in first person. Not the most preferred way of playing, but it's a really nice touch nonetheless, with some impressive amount of detail in the cockpit. But it's really the combat that's the meat and the potatoes of the game. Most of the rigs have some sort of projectile weapon and side attacks, plus some sort of rear weapon like a bomb or mine. Blowing up opponents feels awesome, and as I said that when you're on the ground, even though you can die quickly then, your more weaker weapons can blow a foot soldier to pieces instantly. But just like when you're out of your vehicle, you can die very quickly in the rig. The AI isn't any more sophisticated here. Most combat will eventually divulge into ramming into each other and shooting frantically, waiting for the first person to bite it. It's also really easy to have a bunch of enemy rigs cluster around you and completely annihilate you. So, there's a lack of actual strategy, and your best bet is to cheap out the AI and keep reloading quick saves in the more tougher fights. Weapons themselves need some serious rebalancing. Rockets are grossly underpowered compared to your machine guns, and it's easy to make someone follow you, then probably destroy them by spamming some mines. Now this is probably more of a nitpick than anything else, but you work for a big company, yet they never send any sort of backup, or even let you select or customize a vehicle before a mission. That would have helped replayability a lot. And to be fair, the controls for driving really suck on default. You have to do a lot of fiddling around with the key commands and such if you want to even try to enjoy combat. I especially recommend you turn free lock on immediately which pretty much works as manual aim. Without it selected, combat sucks, to be fair. It's a mess. Now, one more thing that Redline offers that's easy to look over is how big the levels are. They're huge, to say the least, and the fact you can run around them in first person gives a great sense of scale and weight to the world. Sure, the levels are barren for the most part, but cramming all this geometry into one load screen is impressive to say the least. Redline has a really badass soundtrack, which is great to listen to if you like heavy metal. Unfortunately, you only hear it at certain points of the game. Most of the time it's boring ambience. So yeah, that's Redline. This is really not for everyone, and doesn't do anything really special, but that's what I kinda like about it. It's good dumb fun, and nothing more, which I find, when the time suits it, really enjoyable in all its cheap and crappy glory. So, enjoy?